My spoiled cousin destroyed the Christmas gift I made for my girlfriend, and my family blamed me for showing off. Karma saw to it that they ended up ruined. My name is Daniel. For 25 years, I thought blood was the strongest bond that existed, an unbreakable chain that forced you to forgive the unforgivable. I learned in the most painful way possible that blood is just biology, family is loyalty. And in my family, loyalty was a twisted concept, designed to serve only one person, my cousin, Vanessa. It all began 3 months before Christmas. I worked as an antique restorer, a craft that requires patience, precision, and an almost obsessive love for detail. It wasn't a job that would make me a millionaire, but it provided enough for me to live comfortably, and most importantly, it allowed me to create beauty from ruins. I had been dating Anna for 2 years, the sweetest, most intelligent, and patient woman I had ever met. Anna asked for nothing. She never demanded expensive gifts or luxurious dinners. Her love was calm, a refuge from the chaos of my own relatives. That's why I wanted to give her something unique, not something bought at a mall that anyone with a credit card could acquire. I wanted to give her a piece of my soul. I found the object at an estate auction in an abandoned mansion, an automaton music box from the 19th century, of Swiss make. It was shattered. The walnut wood was rotted, the mechanism rusted, and the porcelain ballerina was decapitated. It cost me $400, a bargain for what it was, but the real investment would be time. For 90 nights, after my regular workday, I locked myself in my workshop. I sanded the wood until my fingerprints nearly vanished. I replaced the brass gears one by one, machining them myself because the parts no longer existed. I hand-painted the new ballerina, giving her Anna's hair and eye color. And in the secret compartment, I hid a white gold necklace with a sapphire, a stone I had saved for 6 months to buy. The total value of the materials came to about $3,500, but the sentimental and artistic value was immeasurable. It was perfect. It was the physical manifestation of my love. "You're trying too hard, son," my mother, Amelia, told me a week before the pre-Christmas family dinner. "You know how your Aunt Zoe is. If she sees you have money for those things, she'll start with her comments." "It's not money, Mom, it's my work," I replied, wiping an invisible speck of dust from the varnish. "And I don't care about Aunt Zoe. This is for Anna. I'm just saying, be discreet. Vanessa has been sensitive lately. Her boyfriend left her, and she lost her job at the boutique. She's not in a good place. Vanessa was never in a good place. Ever since we were kids, my cousin had been the family's emotional black hole. If I got a good grade, Vanessa would feel bad because she struggled with her studies, and my parents would ask me not to celebrate. If I won a soccer tournament, Vanessa would get a headache, and we'd have to leave. She was 24, a year younger than me, and still behaved like a 5-year-old. My Aunt Zoe and Uncle Hector had raised her under the philosophy that the world owed her something simply for existing. The annual Perez dinner, my mother's and aunt's family name, was held at my aunt and uncle's house that year. I didn't want to go. I knew Anna would be working at the hospital that night, she was a nurse, so I would be going alone. I thought about leaving the gift at my house, but I wanted to show it to my grandmother, who was very old and no longer left my aunt's home. She appreciated art. It was a fatal miscalculation. I arrived at the house with the music box wrapped in a blue velvet cloth inside a protective bag. Aunt Zoe's house was a monument to wannabe luxury. Imitation gold furniture, carpets that looked Persian but were synthetic, and an atmosphere thick with an overly sweet floral perfume. "Daniel!" Aunt Zoe shouted as she opened the door, a glass of wine already in her hand. "I thought you wouldn't come. Your mother said you were very busy with your old toys." "Hi, Aunt," I said, breathing in. I entered and greeted my Uncle Hector, who was watching television, barely turning his head, and my parents, who were already seated on the sofa with that submissive posture they always adopted upon entering Zoe's domain. Vanessa came down the stairs 10 minutes later. She was wearing a sequin dress that screamed, "Look at me, and clearly cost more than she could afford, probably paid for by Hector. "Hey, cousin," she said dismissively, looking me up and down. Her gaze stopped on the bag I was carrying. "What's in there? Is it for me?" "No, Vanessa, it's not for you. It's Christmas, isn't it? You're supposed to bring gifts." "It's for Anna," I said dryly, walking towards the kitchen to greet my grandmother. The dinner was tense, as always. Vanessa monopolized the conversation, complaining about her ex-boyfriend, a cheapskate, who refused to buy her a new car, and her former boss, a tyrant, who demanded she arrive on time. Aunt Zoe agreed with everything, refilling her daughter's glass and shooting murderous looks at anyone who didn't show enough sympathy. "My poor baby," Zoe would say. "People are so envious of you, Van, that's why they treat you badly. You're too brilliant for them." I ate in silence, counting the minutes until I could leave. When we finished dessert, my grandmother gestured to me. "Son, your mother told me you made something beautiful. Can I see it?" I hesitated. My instincts were screaming, danger. But denying my grandmother something felt cruel. I nodded and went to get the bag I had left in the entryway. When I returned to the living room, everyone was looking at me. I carefully took out the music box, removing the velvet. The wood gleamed under the lamplight. The mother-of-pearl inlays shimmered. I wound it gently and lifted the lid. The melody, Debussy's Clair de Lune, filled the room. The sound was crystalline, perfect. The small ballerina began to turn and rise. It was a masterpiece. Even my Uncle Hector turned off the television. "Oh, Daniel," my grandmother whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "It's beautiful. You have the hands of an angel." "Thank you, Grandma. And that's for the nurse." Vanessa's voice shattered the spell like a hammer on glass. I gently closed the lid, stopping the music. "Her name is Anna. And yes, it's for her." Vanessa got up from her chair and approached. She had had too much wine. Her eyes shone with a mixture of greed and rage that I knew well. "It's too much for her," Vanessa said, reaching out her hand. "Let me see it." "Don't touch it, Vanessa. It's delicate." "Oh, please. We're family." "What's inside?" "Jewelry." "That's none of your business." "Mom." Vanessa whined, turning to Aunt Zoe. "Daniel is being selfish. I want a box like that. My jewelry box is a plastic piece of junk. This would look perfect on my dresser." Aunt Zoe smiled with a condescension that sent a chill down my spine. "Come on, Daniel, give it to your cousin. You can make another one for that girl. Vanessa has had a very difficult year. She deserves a little joy. Besides, it stays in the family." I felt my ears get hot. "Are you kidding me, Aunt? It took me 3 months to make this. The materials cost thousands of dollars, and the necklace inside is for my girlfriend." The mention of the necklace was the trigger. "There's a necklace?" Vanessa shrieked. "I need a necklace. I sold mine to pay my credit card bill. Give it to me." She lunged at me. It was fast and clumsy. She tried to snatch the box from my hands. I stepped back, protecting the object against my chest. "Stop!" I shouted. My voice echoed in the house. "Don't you yell at my daughter in my house," bellowed Uncle Hector, finally getting up. "She's trying to steal from me." I responded, incredulous. I looked at my parents for support. My father was staring at the floor. My mother was wringing her hands. "Daniel, son," my mother murmured, "maybe you could just give her the necklace and keep the box, so we don't make a scene." My mother's betrayal hurt more than any physical blow. I froze, staring at this woman who would rather sacrifice her son's dignity than confront her sister. "You heard her," Vanessa said with a triumphant smile. "Aunt Amelia says to give it to me. Give me that. Don't be such a show-off. You always come here rubbing it in our faces that you have money and talent while I'm suffering. Vanessa grabbed the box again, digging her long nails into the restored wood, scratching the perfect varnish. Let go of it, I warned, struggling to keep it from falling. If it's not mine, it's nobody's, she screamed, and then she did it. It wasn't an accident, it wasn't a slip. She looked me straight in the eyes, let go with one hand, and with the other, she shoved the box with all her strength towards the stone fireplace. The sound was horrific. It wasn't a dull thud, it was an explosion of mechanisms. The 150-year-old wood splintered into 1,000 pieces. The brass gears shot out like shrapnel. The porcelain ballerina, painted with Anna's eyes, disintegrated against the granite. The white gold necklace flew out and landed among the cold ashes. The silence that followed was absolute. I looked at the remains of my work, of my love, scattered across the dirty floor. 3 months of my life, $3,500, and all the love I had poured into it. I bent down slowly. My hands were trembling so much I could barely pick up the necklace. It was intact, but the chain was tangled and bent. The box was beyond repair. Well, said Aunt Zoe, breaking the silence with a tone that suggested I had merely spilled a glass of water, look what you caused, Daniel. I stood up slowly, the necklace clutched so tightly in my fist it hurt. I turned to her. If you hadn't come here to show off, to rub things in Vanessa's face that she can't have, this wouldn't have happened, Zoe continued, crossing her arms. You know she's emotional. You provoked her. It's your fault for being so ostentatious. I looked at Vanessa. There was no remorse on her face, only satisfaction. She was smiling slightly, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders by seeing my pain. It was ugly anyway, Vanessa said. Old and boring. I looked at my parents. My father was still staring at the carpet. My mother approached me, placing a hand on my arm. Daniel, please, don't say anything ugly. She's your cousin. It was an accident of emotions. Can't we glue the wood back together? I pulled away from her touch as if it burned me. No, I said. My voice sounded strange. Calm, dead. It wasn't an accident. And it can't be glued back. I walked towards the door. Where are you going? Asked Uncle Hector. We haven't finished dinner. If you leave now, you're disrespecting this house. I stopped in the doorway, turned, and looked at all of them. At Aunt Zoe and her arrogance, at Vanessa and her pure malice, at Uncle Hector and his ignorance, and at my parents and their pathetic cowardice. You owed me respect, I said, looking at Hector. And you, I pointed at Vanessa, are a miserable person. I hope you enjoy that satisfaction you're feeling now, because it's going to cost you dearly. Don't you threaten us. Zoe shrieked. If you walk out that door, don't come back. We don't need selfish people who don't know how to share in this family. Don't worry, I replied. I don't have a family here. I only have biological relatives. And as of today, to me, you are all dead. Daniel, my mother cried, weeping. Don't say that. You chose, Mom. You saw what she did, you saw her wickedness, and you asked me to give her my gift. You chose your side. Stay with them. I walked out of the house and closed the door. I didn't slam it. I closed it softly, with finality. I got into my car, placed the necklace on the passenger seat, and drove. I didn't cry. I was too furious to cry. I felt a mental clarity I had never had before. I felt light, as if a tumor I had been carrying for years had been removed. I drove straight to Anna's apartment. It was 11 p.m., she had just gotten home from her shift. When she opened the door and saw me, she knew something was wrong. I must have been pale, my eyes bloodshot. Daniel, what happened? I went inside and collapsed on her sofa. I told her everything. I told her about the box, the months of work, Vanessa's envy, and my parents' passivity. I showed her the dented necklace. Anna said nothing at first. She took the necklace, placed it on the table, and hugged me. She held me tight, letting me release the rage. "I'm so sorry, my love," she whispered. "I'm so sorry. Not for the gift, but for how they treated you. You don't deserve that. I'm never seeing them again, Anna. None of them. Not even my parents. I need to cut this out by the root." "I support you," she said firmly, pulling back to look me in the eyes. "I support you 100%. And you know what? You're not spending Christmas alone. You're coming with us. My parents love you. I don't want to intrude. It was just going to be you guys. Daniel, you're a part of my life. Your family. My dad is making a roast. My mom has been asking about you. Please." I accepted. Emotionally, I had nowhere else to go. The following days were a storm of messages and calls. My mother left me 20 voicemails, cycling from pleading, "Please, answer. It's Christmas," to reproach, "You're breaking your grandmother's heart," and finally to manipulation, "Your aunt says if you apologize to Vanessa for yelling at her, all will be forgiven." I listened to each one without responding and then blocked her number. I blocked my father, my aunt and uncle, and of course, Vanessa. On December 24th, as I drove to Anna's parents' house, 3 hours from the city in a more rural and quiet area, I felt a knot in my stomach. I was conditioned to expect tension, judgment, and drama at Christmas gatherings. Anna's parents, Ricardo and Rosa, had a modest but cozy home. It smelled of real pine and roasted meat. Daniel. Ricardo, a large man with working hands, came out onto the porch as soon as I parked. He gave me a handshake that turned into a hug. "So glad you could make it, son. Come on in, it's cold." Rosa came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. "Look at you, you're too thin," was the first thing she said, but with a smile. "Anna told us what happened. And I don't want us to talk about it today, okay? There are no dramas here. Here, we eat, we laugh, and we rest. Welcome home, son." That word, son. My own mother had sold me out for family peace, and this woman, who had known me for 2 years, offered me a place at her table without conditions. The evening was normal, and that normality was the most extraordinary thing I had ever experienced. There were no sly comments about my salary, no comparisons. Ricardo genuinely asked about my restoration work, interested in the techniques I used. Rosa told us embarrassing stories about Anna as a child, and we all laughed. There was a moment after dinner when I took out the necklace. I had taken it to a jeweler friend of mine to have it polished and the chain repaired. "Anna," I said, as we were all sitting near the fireplace, a fireplace used for warmth, not for destroying dreams. "I had a special box for this, but... well, you know." I handed her the standard velvet box. She opened it, and her eyes lit up. "It's beautiful, Daniel. It's a sapphire." "It means loyalty and truth," I explained, my voice a little hoarse. "I think that's what I value most now." Ricardo raised his glass. "To loyalty. And to realizing that family is who takes care of you, not who hurts you." "Cheers." "Cheers," we all said. That night, I slept in the guest room with a peace I hadn't known. I had lost a music box and a group of toxic relatives, but I had gained a perspective. I thought the pain would last forever, but I was wrong. The relief was greater than the pain. However, the universe has a funny way of balancing the scales. I was willing to leave the past behind, to forget the Perezes and move on with my life, but they hadn't learned their lesson. And Vanessa, in her infinite arrogance, was about to make mistakes that not even Aunt Zoe could cover up. Karma isn't revenge, it's a delayed consequence. And for my former family, the bill was about to come due, with interest. 6 months passed. I remained no contact. I learned things through third-party rumors, mutual friends I still had on Facebook who couldn't resist gossip. Apparently, Vanessa had found a new goldmine, a guy named Esteban. According to Vanessa's social media, Esteban was a successful entrepreneur, an investor in cryptocurrency and real estate. The photos were constant, trips to beaches, bottles of champagne, designer handbags. Finally, someone who values me as I deserve, Vanessa wrote in her posts, likely taking a jab at me, and her ex-aunt Zoe was euphoric. She paraded around the neighborhood, telling everyone her daughter was going to marry a millionaire and that they would soon be moving to an exclusive area. My parents, I learned, were trying to get back into Zoe's good graces, probably by lending money for the wedding of the century they were planning. I stayed out of it. My restoration business had grown. A wealthy client had seen my work and commissioned me to restore an entire library of antique furniture. I earned in 1 month what I used to earn in 4. With that money, I proposed to Anna that we move into a bigger apartment together. Life was good. But the Perez family's facade was built on a rotten foundation. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I got the call. It was an unknown number. I don't usually answer, but something told me to. Yes. Daniel? It was my father's voice. He sounded old, tired, and terrified. Luis, I said, using his first name. I couldn't bring myself to say, Dad. I told you not to call me. Son, please, don't hang up. It's an emergency. It's your cousin and your aunt. We're at the police station. And what does that have to do with me? We need help, Daniel. It's a lot of money. Vanessa. She made a mistake. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. Did she break something again? Worse. Daniel, please. Your aunt fainted. We need $50,000 for bail and a lawyer, or they're going to transfer her to the county jail, and they say the charges are federal. I was silent for a moment, processing the information. Federal charges. $50,000. Tell me, I said, not because I was going to help, but because I needed to know. I needed to know the full extent of their stupidity. The story my father stammered out was a perfect symphony of disaster. This Esteban character wasn't a millionaire, he was a small-time con man who targeted gullible women with families willing to go into debt. He had sold Vanessa and Zoe on the idea of a sure thing investment that would double their money in a month. Aunt Zoe had mortgaged her house, the house where Vanessa destroyed my gift, and had given all the money to Esteban, $150,000. My parents had lent them $20,000, their retirement savings. But that wasn't the worst part. When Vanessa discovered that Esteban was about to flee with the money, she didn't call the police. No, her spoiled child logic took over. She went to the apartment Esteban was renting, which he claimed was his, to confront him. He wasn't there. In a fit of rage, identical to the one she'd had with my music box, Vanessa trashed the apartment. But she didn't just break furniture. Esteban had rented the place furnished with real works of art belonging to the building's owner, a serious collector. Vanessa slashed paintings, smashed sculptures, and in a stroke of genius, decided to set Esteban's clothes on fire in the bathtub. The fire got out of control. The sprinklers in the entire luxury building were activated. The water and fire damage amounted to $500,000. And as if that weren't enough, they found drugs in Vanessa's purse when they arrested her, leaving the building. Drugs she swore belonged to Esteban but were in her possession. Esteban had vanished with Aunt Zoe's and my parents' money. Vanessa was being held for arson, destruction of private property, and possession of a controlled substance. Son, my father cried, if we don't post bail today, she'll stay in there until the trial. Zoe, your aunt, says she'll kill herself if her baby girl sleeps in jail. You must have savings. We know you're doing well. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I remembered the sound of the cracking wood. I remembered my mother telling me to give her the necklace to avoid a scene. I remembered Vanessa smiling as my work burned in the fireplace. "Let me see if I understand," I said calmly. "You want me to pay to get the person who destroyed my work, who humiliated me, and who stole my peace, out of jail, using the money I earned from the very work you all despised? It's family, Daniel. Blood. Blood is red, Luis, and it washes out with soap and water. You can't be so cruel," my father shouted, switching from pleading to anger, his true face. "You're so resentful. Your aunt has lost everything. We lost our savings. And that's your own fault. You raised that monster. You applauded her every tantrum. You funded her fantasy life. And you and Mom, out of cowardice, gave your money to a con man just so Zoe would give you a pat on the back. Daniel, no, listen to me carefully. I am not giving you 1 cent. Not a single dollar. Vanessa is an adult. If she committed a crime, let her pay for it. If Zoe lost her house because she was greedy, let her get a job. And if you lost your retirement because you were foolish, I'm sorry, but that's not my problem. You'll regret this. You'll end up alone." I looked around my apartment. Anna was in the kitchen, humming a song while making coffee. The house was clean, quiet. My life was filled with peace. I'm not alone anymore, Luis. I have a real family. Don't call me again. If you do, I will file for a restraining order for harassment. Goodbye. I hung up the phone. I stared at the device for a few seconds, waiting to feel guilt, waiting for that old sting of family duty. But it never came. I only felt an immense, profound, and satisfying tranquility. Anna came into the room with 2 cups. "Everything okay? You look relieved." "Yes," I smiled, taking the cup. "Everything is perfect. I think the cycle is finally closed." "Who was it?" "Nobody important. Just a reminder of why I'm so lucky to have you and your parents. That Christmas, and the ones that followed, were wonderful. Vanessa spent 3 years in prison, the charges were too serious. Zoe lost the house and had to move into a tiny apartment in a dangerous neighborhood, living on Social Security. My parents had to keep working past retirement age to survive, bitter and blaming each other. Uncle Hector divorced Zoe and disappeared. They never recovered the money from the scam. Sometimes, when I'm in my workshop restoring an old piece, I think about that music box. I think about how its destruction was the catalyst I needed to escape. It was the price of my freedom. $3,500 and a broken heart in exchange for a life of dignity and real love. It was the best investment I ever made.